All right, everybody. Today I'm with Ryan Muñoz. We had the chance to meet at another networking event, and he was just here last week for Mixing Knowledge. But Ryan Muñoz is a proud resident of Riverside, California, where he has lived for the past 8 years. Originally from Pico Rivera, he was the first in his family to attend university, earning a degree in sociology and applied psychology from the University of California, Santa Barbara. He later went on to earn a master's in social work from Azusa Pacific University. A dedicated family man, Ryan is married with 3 children. He spent 5 years working as a mental health clinician, helping children and families navigate their mental health. You had a car accident in 2020. What happened there, man? How was that car accident? I was trying to find online if there was anything about the accident.
Yeah.
I couldn't find much. But
No. It actually happened up here up the road off of Mary, near the Stater Brothers. I think was a CVS or Walgreens, right at that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar. I was driving to work, listening to some comedy. I was laughing. It was a Friday, beautiful morning. I'm like, I'm gonna have a great day. It was like my schedule was light, and I have a green light. I have the go ahead to go through the intersection, and dude just took me out. He ran the red light.
You got T-boned?
T-boned.
On your side or on the other side?
On the passenger side.
Okay.
But it spun me around, hit the curb, airbags deployed. So it was a pretty big hit. Except he didn't stop, and I hit my head. I ended up getting a protrusion in my neck, and then a partial tear in my labrum as a result of that, just from like bracing and then like the whiplash.
You were by yourself?
I was by myself.
Thank God.
Yeah. That was literally what I was thinking. And it was just, I had my car seats in the back. I'm just like, what if I had my babies with me?
Man, you already had your kids at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my daughter, my wife, I think, was pregnant at the time.
Okay.
Well, not at the time. She was 2 years. I just had my daughter. But, I was just thinking my family. And it was all so surreal. It was like out of a movie. Like, again, it was like the picturesque day. And then it just, everything completely almost like just, it was in slow motion.
Just like that, your life just
like
changed.
that, because I had never been in an accident like that before, and I'm looking out. There's all this smoke coming into my car, and
out of a movie,
it's the OnStar or what have you. It's you've been in an accident, da 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 da, and I see this lady approaching my window, and it was just like almost like this ringing in my ears of just. Then she knocks on the window. She's like, "You've been in an accident. You're okay. Don't move." And I was just like, it took me a minute. And she opens my door. She's like, paramedics are on their way. And, I look over to, my first thing was like, how's the other person? And I see a man step out of his car, and then he goes to the back seat. And he had his baby girl in the car.
The guy that hit you?
Yeah, the guy that hit me. And I was just like, oh, my goodness. She's bawling. He picks her up, runs over. He's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Don't even worry about me." I said, "Is your baby okay? Like, is she okay?" And the lady ends up asking him, what were you doing? And he's like, I was reaching in the back of the seat, and I wasn't paying attention. Come to find out, it's not even his car, it's his grandmother's. He's not on the insurance. He tried to change his story, try to get people around, to like lie and say that I was the one that ran the red light. Fortunately, the lady who was a witness, she's like, I'm going to stay and make sure that it gets reported correctly. But with insurances, they're going to hear both sides, and so it was that moment was very defining for me.
How old were you when that happened?
This was 2020. This is 5 years ago now. So 32. I was 27, 28 at the time.
Okay. You're 32 right now?
Yeah, 32.
I'll
be 33 in July.
You're young. July what?
13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Both of my daughters are July.
Oh,
July
nice.
22nd and July 31st.
They must be great people.
They are. You should know.
But yeah, it was, and again, me being the just person that's so focused on everybody else and my work.
Because you're a mental health clinician at this time, right?
Yeah. So before I even called my wife, I called my supervisor. I was like, "Hey, I've been in an accident.
I can't make it work.
I can't make it work.
Oh my God, dude.
Because I had clients booked out, so they have to be notified, and if we're working with mental health, they're expecting you to show up,
right?
Know? And if there's a crisis or anything, that they have to make sure they have someone to address those needs when they arise. And because I worked for our agency focused. We were contracted by the county to work with like child and family services, so there was a lot of like trauma, so neglect, abuse, substance use, domestic violence, things of that nature. And working with the foster system. So there was just a lot of, heavy stuff that, that's where my mind went. It was like my clients, the people I help, before, I get my help. And, it was definitely something that put, life into perspective, how it could be so precious. It's not real until it's you or close to home. And now it was me, and the fact that, they, like your neck, your head, and, we want to stabilize you. And, my mind, I'm like, the medical bills are going to be crazy. That's where my head went. And I say, no, like, I'm going to call my wife. She'll take me to the hospital because I'm not about to pay for this ambulance ride. Ryan. I was a little stubborn.
You're not the only one that goes through that, brother. I mean, in this environment that we're living, you get in an accident, and a lot of people go on bankruptcy, majority because of medical bills. And I know there's a lot that is going to change that, but especially as an entrepreneur, as a business owners, a lot of the time they don't have insurance.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the opportunity to get the business to be paying the insurance. Yeah, there's Cover California. There's other ways that we can get this, but you have a life-changing event like that. The first thing that's going to happen is business is going to either lose revenue. Why? Because you can't be in there to go to work.
Yeah.
Because you're probably running all the hats. Second of all is your income at home is going to decrease because you don't have the money to pay the bills because you have to stop going to work. And people don't think about that until you're in the situation.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that I like to tell people, business owners, like, dude, you need to protect your income, brother. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're making 50 grand, 25 grand, or $500,000. It's like you need to protect every dollar that is coming into your household, and then you gotta take care of the income that is coming in for the business. But when you run both of them, is understand how you can actually protect your income. It's going to be the number one thing for any business owner.
Yeah,
dude, congratulations on being the first one in your family to go to college. Are you the first graduate in your family, or you have, or now you have more relatives that have graduated?
More relatives since.
Yeah, so you were the first one?
I was the first in my family to get accepted to a 4-year institution and graduate. So like that has always been, my ambition stems from, knowing what it is to be without, having seen the struggle that my family went through, the sacrifices that they made, when I was very young, and it made an impression on me. The biggest thing that, my mom told me that just stuck with me early on was like, if you want to get out, right? We always hear, oh, get out the hood, get out, from where your circumstance, do it the right way. And, for her, it was through school. So it wasn't that for me, I was that quote unquote poster child, for going to school. I was heavily involved in high school. Got all the awards,
You play sports?
I did swimming and water polo 4 years, and I also did acting for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, for 4 years. Once upon a time, I thought I was going to be the next, big thing. And
you are, dude.
I actually,
in a different way, you are.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that led to where I believe, where I'm at. So it's through the involvement, through learning different skills, right? And again, back to my mom, she was the one that actually, encouraged me to, do theater. I was like, I don't want to do this. I was a freshman. I was like, I don't, she's like, no, you're going to do this one. And, when I got in there and I got on stage, and the first time I felt that feeling of like, all eyes are on me, right? I have the ability to influence, evoke this emotion out of people, like, through the stories that we're telling on stage, right? So, and then there's lessons behind these, these plays that we were putting on, these monologues. And, I used that, it was like I felt like it was like a superpower, and
it's a rush to be on stage.
I was like, I love this. Yeah. I love being able to, influence, and it doesn't come without its work, So, yeah, it was like I put my head in the books. I was getting involved in, through theater, through acting, and that's actually how I got into UC Santa Barbara. So I actually got accepted as a theater major.
Really?
And once I got there, I pivoted, as many do when they get to college. They say you change your major about 2 to 3 times on average during the course of your 4 years, and I did. Like I said, initially it was theater, and then once I got there, it was just a big culture shock for me. And
the theater culture, or
just the being away from the environment at UCSB,
being away from
home,
going,
everything I knew, and it was like people don't look like me, they don't dress like me, they don't sound like me, and I stood out, right? Because I normally have, coming, just playing sports too. And people think that it's, it's for other reasons, but I would always have my head shaved. And, I have my tattoos. I actually started getting tatted in high school.
Okay.
So very early, probably earlier than I should have. But, so I had this look, this appearance. And part of, what my mom feared was like, you're going to be, stereotyped. You're going to be, looked at like, this hoodlum. I'll never forget, one moment I came home and I had got like the first time ever, because every time I was trying to go shorter and shorter with my hair. And I have really thick hair, so everyone's like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, one, I get really hot. And two, it's just the convenience. Like, I gotta style it. Just get up and go. I'm about efficiency. And
the entrepreneur mindset was
it was
there.
early on. And I came home, I did a 0. Like, anything, just shaving it would have been the closest thing to being having a bald head, right? And I walked through the door, and I'll never forget, like, she started crying, because she was just like, you're going to be, this. And I remember telling her, I said, if people can accept me, again, it was like the whole judge a book by its cover. If they can accept me like this, then I don't need to know them. I don't need to be interacting with them, right? If they see the value, and that's what I've navigated my whole life, it's that stereotype, right? Growing up, I've encountered that, in my community. I encountered that when I went to UCSB, right? Again, because of the culture shock. So I've had my run-ins with, the law more so because of that, my appearance. And it was, could I have avoided some of that?
Maybe.
Possibly. But, it was like, did you even care to ask? Or, did you do your due diligence and understanding, before you made judgment? And that's what I would find is that, when I had put words on paper, when someone would speak to me over the phone, it was like, they heard the eloquent speech and the vernacular and all of that. And, Ryan Muñoz.
And they're seeing you, like,
and then they see me walk through the door. I love that.
Oh, man.
I loved
Their faces probably dropped.
Oh, my goodness.
Man.
I thrived on that. And that was what, like, I told my mom, I said, I want to be representative of the culture. Like, I don't want, to, try to fit this mold that they say we need to be. And they can, there's a whole lot of, I can break that down, but,
I can imagine.
It was, for me, it was like, this is where I come from, Pico Rivera, like, the 5'6", like, and, my people. And so when I got to UCSB, like, but I encountered that again, I would get stopped by the police. Where are you going? They didn't believe I was a student.
I'm a student here. You got to show me your ID.
Yeah. So like, I remember one time, I'm going to class. I was skateboarding to a class, and, 2 officers stopped me, and they're like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to class. He's like, are you sure about that? I'm like, yes, I am. What's in your backpack? And I said, my books, my laptop, what do you mean? And he's like, can you open it for me? Can you show me? And I said, well, why am I being stopped? What's the nature, of why are you asking me these questions? He said, well, you fit the profile of someone we've been looking for that's been tagging in the parking structure. So again, it was just like, even here, I'm being, stereotyped and being looked at, and again, I've had conversations like, oh, we could avoid that. Why don't you just dress this way, or cover your tats up, or grow your hair out, and you can avoid that. It's like, I shouldn't have to, right? So that for me was big, and I think that's what's allowed me to, connect with people too, because, I'm also, very conscious of that. Like, I try not to look at, well, there could be someone in a suit that is far worse, in character and things that they do, compared to someone that might look like they've done that. And, that's where for me it's like why I say representative of the culture is because, that's how I grew up. It was, us as Latinos, that's how, we, look.
But it's not just as Latino, man. It's in any race. There's so many people that just stereotype for anything, whether you look like a cholo, you look like a gangster, or you look like a rocker, you're like, there's always some type of tag. There's always a tag for a profiling, and it is unfortunate, but it's a type of society that we live in. But it's like you're saying, is once you get to know the person. Yeah. But the bad thing is sometimes people don't give us that opportunity to get to know the person because of how we look. And I understand what you're saying is if people don't want to do business with me because of how I look or what people think about me, then, it's not the people that I got to be around with. I understand that and I respect that. I myself, I've always been aware of how I see myself. And when I see myself, I think about, well, how will people think about me? It's not that I care what people think about me, but I'm conscious that people are judging. And like in my line of business, if I'm trying to work with a company that we're trying to do maybe $180,000 profit sharing plan or $300,000 profit sharing plan, like I understand that my appearance might affect whether I have the opportunity to build a relationship to see if I even get the chance to write the business. You get me? So I've always been aware of that. And I think at the end of the day, to me, it's like the more chances I have to talk to somebody and not shoot myself on the foot because of how I might look like, then I get the chance to come in and show them who I am. But at the end of the day, I've learned to embrace. It's like I embrace how I dress. I embrace the person that I am today. And my wife, she's being a big supporter of telling me, like, maybe you shouldn't do your hair this way because then this and then that. When I had the faux hawk, when I'm like, I don't think somebody's going to want to come and do business, financial business. If you're wearing, I'm like, I understand it. And I'm like, but this is me, babe. I understand you, babe, but you got to realize that if you want the business to grow, you got to be able to make people feel comfortable to come into business with you. And it's the law of attraction. Everything starts from the eyes. It's a pendulum, dude. It's kind of like, okay, how much do I really want to advocate for the culture? And how much is that going to affect my opportunity to grow my business? But not only that is the opportunity to touch the heart of somebody else, because they just completely block the walls. Then I have the chance to at least talk about something else, because that is one thing less that I had to deal with is how I look, because I know that that's no longer an issue. I've learned to embrace this, but the opportunity that I didn't cut off just because people not wanting to talk to me because of how I look.
No, and that's through over time and maturity, and being a father and all of that. I'm more mindful of those things, but again, it always just kind of stemmed from even getting back to my relationship with God. We've been to many churches in my lifetime. Even as assignments through school, when we went to APU, they actually gave us an assignment to go to different churches and different denominations. So I've been to Methodist, Baptist, non-denominational, right? All different, through school. But in that, like growing up, like one of the biggest things that I appreciated about one of the churches that we went to was this idea of come as you are. Being
real. Our church standards, be real.
So that's where it kind of, apart from just, I want to rebel and, do it my way. It was from that perspective too. It's like, I mean, early on, I didn't have the ability to buy a suit, right? So even that, things like that sometimes prevent someone to even be able to look a certain way. So this is what I have. This is what how I wear it. This is how I style, how I rock it. And I'm coming as me. And over time, like I said, I've developed a little bit more of a fashion sense. And like you're saying, then you have others that you care about that influence things. And I've definitely have shifted that. It's not so rigid for me as it once was, of just like, no, I'm gonna do it my way. Now it's like you're saying, it's like I don't want to limit opportunities, and it's kind of this idea of if you want to be heard, you kind of have to, the way I see it, it's like we're playing the game, right? We're playing the game. This is Monopoly. It's real life. So how do I get my foot in the door? You know, it's not going to be in slides, you know, flip flops, you know, and you know with the.
Hey man, Brandon Boy came on flip flops, dude, and look at the nuggets that he gave us, dude.
That's what I'm saying, you know, but certain individuals, I would challenge, it can sometimes get away with that. You know, there's a level of privilege that, you know, that I've seen and directly have experienced, right? You know, that's why, you know, UCSB, I really looked at it as like my understanding the world. You know, going to college, it wasn't so much about like my majors. It was like, you know, this was like a microcosm of what the world is going to be like. Okay. And I found myself there, right? I'm on my own for the first time. You know, mommy and daddy aren't there to help you, right?
Even make sure there's toilet paper in their bathroom.
You know,
every time.
So it's like you got to clean your own space now. You got to, you know, I'm cohabitating with other individuals that, you know, have had different upbringings. So now I'm learning to
coexist with
coexist and compromise and, you know, sorry.
You're good.
Busy man.
You're good, man. You're still doing work hours.
So, yeah, it was, you know, kind of a coming of age, and that's where I got to see these different perspectives, right? I got to open my eyes to what does it mean to, you know, be inclusive? What does it mean to, you know, kind of going back to that personal brand? Who am I going to be? Yeah. Who am I going to be when I leave this institution? And I got different experiences, right? You know, during my time there, and but I didn't want to forget where I came from, and I feel like that was where like it was like, what do I keep and what do I do away with, right? And in order for me to get to that next level, and that, you know, has happened in different phases in my life where it's like, you know, I never forget that how I came up and the experiences that helped shape me, you know, to then, you know, step into certain spaces that allowed me to learn even more, you know. So even so I was a part of an organization. You were only able to be a part of it if you were recommended by a teacher. So this was in high school. Okay. It was called Chicano Latino Youth Leadership Project. Okay. And their whole kind of purpose and mission is to, you know, inspire individuals to get into spaces where they can affect change in the communities that they reside in, right? So it's like, you know, at that time, you know, this was back, 2010? It was like, how are we the majority and still the minority? Okay. Right? As a people. Yeah. And, you know, that really was like, it was just mind blowing for me at the time. It was like, you know, because I always felt like that. I in my experiences, that even though I was doing all the things right, again, part of because the image, but just because of who I was, you know, and you know, even just my ethnicity, like things that I couldn't change, right? You know, it's like I can't change my skin color. I can't change the fact that I'm, you know, Latino, right? And I would enter these spaces where I felt the discrimination. I felt like I didn't belong. You know, I wasn't being accepted as my peers were being accepted, yet we're doing the same things. Yeah. Where I would even challenge that, you know, I'm doing them a little bit better. You know, not from a place of arrogance, but from a place of confidence because I've invested my time into doing these things. So like I used to do part of theater. My director, Mrs. Johnson, wonderful woman. She was like my auntie, I would say, like at school. Okay. And so with that, you know, and Mrs. Rosa Zavala, she was the one that referred me to this program, the COYLP, that ultimately I then interned for in college. But it was that idea from the experiences. I remember, you know, I would do oratorical contests. So I would kind of like speech and debate, but without the debate piece. It was just like they'll give you a topic, you know, for Lions Club, Rotary, you know, International, American Legion. Okay. But it was often, you know, older,
I know
male,
what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I was just that one. You know, I was just that one.
So
I felt like I was sticking up.
Stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And here I am, you know, the only one that looks like me in this room, with individuals that, you know, lighter complexion and all of that. And I felt strongly about, you know, that I wasn't giving a fair shot, right? I wasn't giving a fair shot. And the reason being is that I had multiple instances where it was like I was always placing but I was never first. It's like, oh, you're third, you're second, you're third, you're second, but you can never be first. And I recall there was this one specific one that I was like, man, I killed it. And, just from delivery to the topic, the execution, I'm like, I did that. I was like, all in my heart, my bones, it was one of those moments when you felt like, I know I did that. And I didn't even place. And I'll never forget the moment, as soon as they're calling out all the participants, right? And, first place, second place, my director, she goes into her purse and pulls out her wallet, and she hands me money. And I was like, Ms. Johnson, why are you doing that? And, she's like, I know what you put into this, and they robbed you. And I was like, Ms. Johnson, it's not even about the money. Because you get prize awards.
Okay.
So different prizes, if you did community, then it was state, and then, or region, and then state, for the things that, you're competing. So it was for your district, and then you would go to the bigger competition stages, right?
Okay.
So, but there was prize awards that would be given, and, monetary. And I was like, it's not about the money. It's never been about the money. It's the fact that I deserve to be here. Just like anybody else. And I, would challenge that I'm as good, if not better, than most of these people in here.
Placed,
And so I knew very early on that I was going to have to work twice as hard as everybody else just to potentially have a seat at the table. And even then, I have to be mindful of how I move, because whatever I may do, I'm not going to get the leniency. I'm not going to get the benefit of the doubt. It's, you have one shot.
Yeah.
Don't blow it.
Yeah.
And that was part of what shaped my journey, and why this organization was so impactful on my life, the COYLP, because it was finally there was an organization that understood what was going on, right? They were educating me on these things. It's hey, there's these things called microaggressions, where it's it's not maybe overt, but it's little subtleties that are practiced and done in a way that keep you as less than. It's a reminder that, hey, don't forget your place.
Yeah.
And I'm no, yes, we are the majority. Yes, I do need to be in a position of power to affect change, for myself, for my family, and my community. And so that's what ultimately has been in everything that I've done, because at that time I started as a lifeguard, in high school. So I've always been, the roles that I've been in have always been in service to others. It's always been about community. So, from being a lifeguard, from working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as a support staff, it's always been about people. And, when I got to university, to UCSB, apart from, the culture shock, apart from learning that, hey, everything that my director wanted me to do in high school, that I chose not to do, because she was like, I want you to learn about lighting and sets and makeup and, the behind the scenes stuff. I said, no, I'm just an actor.
I don't care about that.
I don't need to learn that. And, when I got to university, I found that everyone was dancers, musicians, singers, and, it was they had the whole bit. And I was like, I'm just acting. I don't know if I want to be that struggling.
So that's what
artist.
Prompted you to switch.
So that prompted me to pivot at that stage, and ended up finding sociology. And it was actually through Chicano studies that I started to find sociology and started to learn about just how how does all this work when it comes to humans and relationships and all these different dynamics. I wanted to peel back the layers.
Right.
And again, it was just about understanding how I fit into the world. And how I can help others to do the same. And that's ultimately why I stayed with it, why I ended up picking up applied psychology, and trying to understand, how people think, why they do the things that they do, understand it, because I didn't have a guide, none of us really do.
Yeah.
We're fortunate if we have our parents and, mentors that help, shape our journey. But, for me, I said being planted in Santa Barbara, I was then alone again, and I would be able to call home. I'd be able to call people that I trusted, but because they had never been in it or they've never done it, or it's been some time since they've done it, it's the relatability or understanding of what I was going through at the time, didn't always connect. And that's when I kind of just, started to really, so what is it that I want to do? And that's why those teachings, through my experiences and through this organization, that I became like an alumni like chair for them. You know, so I was doing things behind the scenes for conferences for other students that were coming up, right?
So all of your past experiences, everything that you've gone through, you've learned a lot. And that is the same way that I've learned. For example, I've learned that I have not waited for an opportunity for somebody to come and give me a hand so that I can excel. I've learned to create my own environment.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give me a platform so that I can come and show you what I can do for you, I'm going to create my own.
Yeah.
It's taken me longer, versus trying to work together with somebody else and let me leverage your platform so that I can position myself differently so that I can excel. Because I've gone through the same situations. I mean, look at me. People look at me, they don't even think I'm Mexican. People look at me, they think I'm Middle Eastern. And that early on...
I get that a lot too.
Dude, I can't imagine.
when I have the beard,
dude.
I've grown it out. And so we moved the shaved head even more so. It's like, I've had people come at like at the store like, are you Middle Eastern? I'm like,
dude, I get people
Latino,
asking me. I get people talking to me in Farsi or different language. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I don't know. But then I realized that I was going to struggle, especially being in sales. I was always up against that. People will always judge me for how I look. I'm like, you don't speak my language. So I'm like, oh no, I do. I soy Mexicano. And then I learned early enough. I'm like, what will people shut me down for? Boom. I turn it into a positive. So what would I do? I would always make a joke out of it. And the minute I was able to get people to smile, I'm like, half of the battle I've already won it. But I've always realized I'm going to be up against this for how people judge me.
Yeah.
And I realized that I started to create my own platforms. I'm going to create my own opportunities. And it's been longer for mixing knowledge. Perfect example is I'm creating the platform to be able to connect with other business owners so that I can showcase the value that I can add to them as an individual, but also professionally. But instead of trying to go out there and struggle to see if people want to do a traditional marketing strategy, it's like, let me create the environment. Yeah. And people are starting to pay attention, and people that are of a different race, they're starting to see behind the shell. Yeah. They're starting to let me show you what's behind my layers. Let me show you what the Lord has put me to be able to do to help you out. And that is my main common denominator. It came down to like, God put me in this earth for a reason, and everything that I've gone through, I've learned to implement them to create the platform. Which is the hard thing is I understand what you're saying is like there's certain platforms to show us you gotta know your place. Like even though as good as you are, this is not your platform. This is my platform. And as long as I control the platform, I'm gonna tell you where you belong. Unfortunately, yes, that's always going to be there. But then that helped me to understand like, well, I'm gonna do the opposite of it. And I'm gonna create a legacy for other people to be in an incubator. And not everybody, we all get to share our stories.
Yeah.
So it's understanding of like, well, let me create something different. It may not be as big, but it could be bigger. So at the end of the day, I've understood, it's like, God, use me, I'm your tool, I'm your servant. Help me understand how do I create this platform. Because at the end of the day, the platform is not for me, it's for Him.
Yeah.
Everything that you've gone through, the values that you are implementing into Nutrizy. Obviously, you are a business owner. You are an entrepreneur. You have a huge history, but you also are smart enough to understand how to leverage government contracting, which not a lot of people have been able to understand how to tap into it. The guy, Ryan, back in Santa Barbara, Ryan today, what is one message that you would tell him to stick to not obviously you already did it, but the Ryan back then, like, dude, it's worth it. Everything that you're going through is worth it because you're going to create something bigger. How has that Ryan now being able to implement it in your business?
I think I moved with such urgency and a chip on my shoulder for so long that it was also limiting in my ability to appreciate the process of things. So I today am more patient, more willing to even accept help. Like I don't have to do it on my own. So when I look back, I was, the motivation for what I was doing, just apart from me wanting to succeed for my family, there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of this feeling of like, I have to prove everybody wrong, that I can do it, that that someone that looks like me can do it, right? And so I felt that it served me, it brought me, it kept me hungry. Kept me hungry for a while, but that mindset can only serve you for so long. And it really was that car accident at the top of 2020 that allowed me to see that It was, you know, and in addition to the pandemic, because that came right after that. So I was out of work. I had a lot of time to reflect. Initially, it was like, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? You know, going through the rehab, knowing that I wasn't physically ever really going to be the same. You know, it's like, now how do you adjust? So when I look back, I was like, man, that guy was, you know, I missed out on certain events because I was like, no, I gotta do this, right? And there's seasons in your life that those are part of the sacrifices. You know, you're not going to be a part of every event, or, you know, but even relationships, I wasn't doing a good job at, you know, maintaining those things and giving it the time that I needed, because it was about, no, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do it now. And so, like, I was compartmentalized a lot, and it was just like, this, don't bother me, I'm in this mode. And when I started to slow down, when I started to appreciate, you know, as they say, you know, to be cliche, you know, stop and smell the roses once in a while, right? I started to see is like, you know, the very thing that I was praying for, the very thing that I was working so hard for, I was already in it.
You just wouldn't see it.
I just didn't see it. So the fact that I was at UCSB, such a milestone, not just for myself, but for my family, but I was focusing on what I didn't have. And that followed me for quite some time, and it really wasn't until, you know, I think I became a father that it's like, it's no longer about me. Even though everything I was doing was for me, but for my family, it truly, at that moment when I saw my daughter, nothing else really mattered.
You stop seeing yourself and making that about you, and not become
yeah, it was like all the anger I had, you know, at everyone in the world, and, you know, it's like, why didn't I get that opportunity? Like, I'm just as good. Doesn't even matter, because I have my baby girl. My baby girl taught me, you know, what it was all about. It was always about this. And you know, my wife, you know, she's a definitely, I won't say a boulder, she's a little rock, she's a little shorty. My little piedrita. It holds me down and reminds me of that, keeps me grounded, and allows me to, you know, move, you know, the way that is going to help me preserve my sanity, you know, and be present, you know, and that was why, like, when that accident happened, and I went back to work, I mean, there was massive turnover. There was, you know, so the increase of caseloads, we're pulling funding from these other programs that you helped to develop and facilitate, you know, because, you know, there's a need right now. But the way that it was being done, and for the foreseeable future, I said, I was already burnt out prior to my accident, and now you're throwing all this at me. I was like, I gotta go. This no longer is gonna serve me and my family, because it was this sense of security, you know, that, you know, sometimes, you know, they say, like, you know, they sell you the 9-to-5 so you can forget your dream, right? You know, and it's like, I had felt like I just hit a wall where it was like, I'm no longer going to be able to grow here in the way that I would like to. So it wasn't even necessarily at that time about my own thing. Okay. It was, I felt like I got everything I could from that agency, you know, with the colleagues that I was with at the time. So yeah, I'm looking back and telling Ryan, hey, slow down, appreciate the process, the moments that you worked so hard to earn. Because I look back and, you know, I did, you know, enjoy my time, but there's definitely a lot more that, like, I'm like, man, I kind of missed out on that.
It's like we're living life, but we're not living in it. To me, sometimes it feels like everything is just moving. You know how you see those videos and everything is just moving so fast? Yeah. It's like sometimes I get caught up into that, that I forgot to pay attention to what's around me. And I've gotten a lot better on doing that. But not until you start to realize that what you just said is like everything that you wanted to work for, and you're already doing it, and yet you're still not realizing, like, I'm in it. Like, I'm living what I wanted to do 2.5 years ago. Right now, the company is, after almost 10 years, 9 years, I visualized this before I even started. And now that I'm living, and I'm like, look back, and I made progress. And being grateful for the progress that I've made, but being aware of it. I don't think a lot of us are aware of our present. We're constantly living in the future right now. I was that type of guy. I was always searching the next goal, without realizing that, wait a second, I achieved the goal, and I'm already doing it, but I'm not paying attention to it. And it wasn't until, to me, I learned to slow it down 3.5 years ago when my dad passed away. It was at that time when I'm like, okay, let me slow down a little bit. When my daughter, my first daughter, Jay, was born, I brought more purpose on goal to make sure now it's not just about me. It's I gotta make sure I can provide everything that I can for her. But it wasn't until my dad passed away and I was able to step away from the business for almost 2 months. And I realized that the income didn't suffer. The income was sustainable. But it was at that time that God allowed me to see, it's like, I'm going to have to take away someone from you to realize that you need to slow down. And when he took my dad away, I stopped and I started to look around like, wait a second, it's happening. Like, I need to stop being this type of person.
Yeah.
But there's so many people out there that we go through the same thing. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. Is we're constantly chasing and we're chasing and we're chasing. And I stopped chasing once I realized it's about purpose. It's not about goals anymore.
Yeah.
It's about the purpose of serving others, the purpose of, let me try to use my platform once again. It's like, get to know my God a little bit. The minute I started to make it about him, it's like, the peace that I've had, it's how? How do I have so much peace when there's so much stuff going up around my life, man?
Yeah.
My personal life, my business. How do I get to be so calm? Like a peace that I don't know how to describe, but I've achieved that. Not because of me, but because of him once again. And being aware of that and implementing it into the business is the best that we can do, man. What is your goal with Nutrizy? What is your vision? Not your goal. I'm just talking about goals. What is your vision and your purpose with Nutrizy?
Vision and purpose, it stems from my upbringing in terms of like our family dynamic and things that directly affected my family growing up and that of my wife's. Because when we started Nutrizy initially, and if I'm being completely honest, I mean, I knew I was wanting my own thing, but it was, well, at the time I was in my mental health role, I was so consumed by that. My wife had just gotten she became a registered dietitian, so she got like her license, right? So I was like, hey, I think, we should start, your own thing, like go private. You can still do the county stuff and all that, but go private.
She's an accountant?
Yeah. Okay. She's with the county.
Oh, with the county. Okay.
So she's a registered dietitian, and I, for her birthday one year, 2019, I was like, I want to get your LLC. So I came across a gentleman who works for the California Business Bureau, and was promoting the LLC. Like, we'll file, expedite, all of that. And I was like, all right, let's do that. I was like, I didn't really know much about it. I was like, but you're gonna do it. So I kind of like pushed her. I say, like, you go do that. I don't have the time yet. I don't have this, energy and bandwidth. And then some accident hit. She, pandemic, everything slows down. We're out of, work for some time, and she starts, she's the one that started Nutrizy. So her name's Izelle.
Okay.
Nickname is Izzy. And she's a registered dietitian. So the nutrition component comes from there. So Nutrizy is my wife.
Okay.
But she knew that she didn't want to do it alone. And that, with the space that I was in mental health, she's like, we're gonna do something. So she saw it early, and opted to call the business Nutrizy, Nutrition and Wellness. Okay. And the wellness was me. Okay. Although I didn't know it at the time.
But it's your testimony. How you achieve your wellness.
Yeah. So she started us off nutrition services during pandemic. Surprisingly, not everyone's concerned about their health. So we did really good our first year providing virtual services, nutrition counseling, meal plans, things of that nature. And shortly thereafter, then I started kind of building out the wellness side, and with work demands and everything shifting, it kind of became, she started elevating at work, taking on different roles, scaling up for where she was. So work demanded her, more of her. I then stepped into more of the business. And as I was looking at everything, I'm like, the third component here is the physical piece, right? When I was in mental health, I found that a lot of my clients, like, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm dealing with all these things. And, the question would be, okay, I would very rarely look at the individual versus the problem. It's more of like, I'm a systems guy. So like I'd break down, the different things, their environment, their support system, their daily practices. And then I would say, okay, let's look at all of this together. And much like you might, do for the businesses, that you work with and you provide consulting with. And I say, okay, let's look at all of this and, let's compare it to where you're having your problems, and let's see if we can identify what's contributing to it. It may not be the complete root of it, but if we can alleviate some of what you're feeling based on these other things that are contributing, because it compounds, right? It builds on itself. Then and then after you do those things consistently and you still don't see a result or you're still having challenges, then maybe there's something more that, is maybe out of your control to, address. And so more often than not, it was, their diet was horrible. They weren't getting physically active, right? They weren't, getting enough sleep, right? Probably, a lot of times, I had a lot of clients that would watch a lot of TV, right? They're feeding their mind and, so it's just, I would look at all these things and, mind you, in my limited scope, I could encourage these other things to be practiced, but I couldn't speak on the nutrition. I couldn't speak on the physical fitness, right? It was like my lane was the mental health piece, right?
That's really
so then we would refer out, we would encourage, hey, talk to your primary, get a referral. I encourage you to go see a, a nutritionist or a dietitian, before we explore medication. Right? Because medication should be like the last resort.
Yeah.
And at least in my opinion. So I ended up going and getting my certification as a personal trainer because I was like, do we go and maybe find someone that we can partner with, or do we go? I just go do it. And so, like I said, after I left my previous employer, I was like, well, I got some time on my hands. Let me invest in this, and I got certified through NASM. As a trainer. So now we had all three: the nutrition, physical fitness, and then the mental health component, well-being. And that's our program model. And
so Nutrizy has those three legs.
Yeah.
How you help your patients.
Yeah, how we help
mental health, physical, and nutrition. Okay.
Yes. And it all stems from the fact that, going back to the family dynamics and our upbringing, my father, type 2 diabetic, and, growing up in the home, there was a lot of challenges associated with that condition, right? It was, that's how I experienced it as a child coming up. It was like a lot of these challenges that we're having is because he's a diabetic, right? And we would constantly, my parents would have arguments. My mom wanted to care for my father, meaning well. Maybe the approach, because we've never dealt with this, right? We're just trying to help him. And, as looking back at, after going through all my education and my healing work, being able to understand and put into context, like, wow, like a lot of what, we dealt with as a family, I kind of look at, because I there was a level of resentment I had. I was like, I looked at my dad and I'm like, do you understand that what you're doing, when you eat these things, or when you add all this salt and all these things to your food before you even tasted it, you understand, that at that time, and it might be seen as like drastic for some, but it was like, you're killing yourself right in front of us. Every time we sit down for a meal, right, or we'd see you, just stuff your mouth. It's like, knowing that you have this condition and how it can worsen if you don't take care of yourself, you're not consistent with your medication, and not relying on the medication, but, really making lifestyle changes that are going to support you.
Yeah.
And so we struggled with that. And, naturally being in an environment over time, you're going to adopt certain things. You're going to internalize and even, do it yourself. So what did I get from my family apart from my dad? Because even my mom, being she actually was pregnant with me when she was pursuing college. She ended up stopping because, to take care of me, when early on in her career. She since has gone back to school, graduated, has her degree. But early on, she was, again, working her way up. And it was like about work. And, in that hustle, and then my dad, he, I learned, back when that, he didn't finish high school. He went back and got his GED, but in that, it limited opportunities. And then at work, stress, this whole dynamic in the family. My parents started.
Which a lot of people go through this.
Yeah.
You're not just describing your family. You're describing hundreds of families here in the States, man.
And so, like, that was my experience. And we became like the stress eaters. It was like, oh, something's going on, right? You know, the sky's falling, things are, you know, necesito algo rico. Like I need to reward myself. I need to distract myself.
I'm stressed because Jay's having a softball game. She's about to hit, and here I am having the seeds.
Well,
it happens a lot.
It's like, you know,
time,
it just, there wasn't this practice of moderation. It was like, you know, and even just, we know, because the busy lifestyle that they had, and you know, paycheck to paycheck, you know, we gotta hustle. You know, I wasn't getting a whole lot of home cooked meals. We ate out a lot, so it wasn't even so much that it was like, okay, well, you know, they were eating poorly. It was just that, you know, if you eat out, you know, you can't control for what's being put in that food, right? And so that's what I grew up on, right? I grew up with the fast food. I grew up with, you know, the stress eating, you know, and even as I've learned through my wife, who's a dietitian, it's like, you know, even like not eating. Right, because you know it was like we were so focused that what I saw was like I can't eat until I'm done. Yeah. Right. I'm working hard. I can't eat until I'm done, and that does something to your dynamics that people don't understand. You know, it's not fasting. You know, you're hurting your you know, your metabolism, and you know, then you end up binge eating. Right, you overeat when you do eat because you've starved yourself. You starve yourself. So that was what I grew up with, and I've always had to battle with that. And it wasn't until really I got to college, you know, being around other individuals, it was like, you know, now I'm in the gym, you know, I got my peers like, hey, let's go work out, you know, and because, you know, I had the college budget, I was, you know, tuna, PB&Js and pasta, you know, so I had a little control over more of what I ate, but still, you know, I'm still on my journey, you know, to this day, you know, I'm still trying to break away from those things that I've kind of been conditioned to over time. You know, it's not easy to break away from. And my wife, similar experience, but her father passed away very young. You know, so he also, having been a diabetic, you know, poor, you know, lifestyle choices. Ultimately, you know, he passed away when she was 12. Wow. So that's what motivated her to pursue her career in nutrition. The dynamic that I experienced in my home motivated me to pursue mental health. And through our, you know, having met each other, our kind of our lifestyle and what we wanted to embrace, you know, for ourselves and for our family really aligned. And that's what Nutrizy kind of really represents. It's that we made a commitment that this is going to be the lifestyle that we're going to wake up every day and try to live so that our children can benefit from it. Doesn't mean that we're perfect. Doesn't mean that, you know, I don't enjoy my fast food still now and again, you know, and still struggle with the fact that I got to work and get this project done before I eat. You know, my wife's always telling me, hey, at least have a snack. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can't focus. I can't eat and work. I'm not that multitasker.
If I'm going to eat, I got to go sit on the break room. I got to get out. I can't be in the computer. Yeah. Somebody who's watching this video, to wrap it up, they're going to the same, they listen to your story. They got to know more of who Ryan is. Yeah. But they're going through a similar, they had a past that they might still be holding off. They haven't had that moment that changed their life like you did with your accident. When you realize, okay, this weight has to be lifted. I got to let go of that so that you can continue to build your testimony, to impact and serve others. Who will be the person that can come and talk to you from the mental space? Who will be the person that can approach you so that you can help them? How do they get a hold of you?
Right now, I would say social media is the best way. We're probably on there more than anything. Instagram, @theofficialnutrizy. We're currently undergoing a whole website revamp. We do have our current one active, so there's a lot of information on there, but we're making it more user-friendly and the ability to, you know, actually even like have the purchase options on there for whatever service program package that they're looking for.
Are your services pay out of pocket or are they covered through insurance?
So we have private pay. The idea is that, you know, our whole model is about making these services affordable. Right? You know, more often than not, people view these things as a luxury. It's like, oh, if I had extra money, I'd get a trainer. If I had extra money, I'd work with a dietitian. So we're significantly undercutting the competition because we believe that, you know, finances shouldn't be the barrier for you to make that lifestyle change. And that's why, you know, being family owned, you know, learning our story, why we started this, it wasn't because of the money, right? We understood that we wanted to create another stream of income for our family, you know, but ultimately, again, it's in service to other people in the community that, as you mentioned, there's a lot of people that have that story, right? Of, that family dynamic, whether it's obesity, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's, physical ailments. So then how do you then be that change maker for your family? And so we wanted to make things affordable. We do now accept insurances for the nutrition counseling. There are certain providers, so it would just be a matter of consulting with us. But we try to make it affordable. I've offered even on a case by case basis, depending on how they what they're looking for. I do offer payment plans. That's more for I look at that as when I speak to people who are interested. If you're really trying to make a lifestyle change, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
I'm really here to help, and so we'll figure that out. That shouldn't be where your focus should be. It should be on when you're looking for support. Is this person gonna walk with me? Are gonna keep me accountable? Are they gonna speak life into me and empower me, and give me the tangible resources that I can actually apply? And that only happens when you have individuals that practice these things, in their own life with their family, right? So if you go on my page, you're gonna see my kids all over there,
I've seen you,
right? Because it's about involving them. They see mommy and daddy. It's not like, oh, daddy has to go to work. It's like, hey, you want to see what daddy does? Come with me. Like my daughter, if she didn't have school today, she asked me,
she wanted to come?
Can I go with you to the podcast?
Man, that would have been awesome. That definitely would have been awesome.
Yeah. So we have different packages for pretty much any budget.
Okay.
And like I said, you can either if you're looking for nutrition counseling, personal training, wellness coaching, even private gym membership. We converted our garage into what's referred to as like a micro gym.
Okay.
So same amenities, commercial quality equipment, while being able to provide a space to because our model is our target audience is beginners to intermediate levels of training. So someone trying this out for the first time, or it's just been a while since they've been in the gym or have practiced these things, so they're maybe deconditioned, and then they start up with us.
The wellness portion of the consultations that you do, the wellness, it comes down to the mental side.
Yeah. So
how do you help out with somebody with the mental side? Somebody who's probably before they can even jump in the journey of their physical health.
Yeah.
They're carrying that baggage, and I think that's what I had at the podcast that we had with Andy, and it's right now it's airing. Part of why a lot of people don't start the journey because it's mental. It's making sure that you're ready to start that change.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're obviously that's what you went to school for.
Yeah.
You've obviously gone through a lot. That is, to me, that is a part that I think you can impact a lot of lives. And then, like you said, it'll come down to the physical, then it come down to the nutrition, but the mental. How do you help somebody for the mental side of it?
So with the wellness piece, it's about sitting down. Obviously, I bring my mental health background. It's not therapy.
Okay.
Right? Therapy, the way I make the distinction is that with the wellness, I am a little bit more prescriptive in what I may ask someone to do. So in therapy, it's like you're walking with them, you're encouraging them, right? You're providing the guidance. These are things I think would help you. In this dynamic, it's you're ready to make a change, and I'm going to support you, and I'd like you to follow this regimen. So it's a little bit more prescriptive in that I'm going to tell you exactly what I'd like you to practice daily. And so you're talking about, well, these are the mental barriers are so debilitating or impactful that I can't even understand that my relationship with food or making that change or physically working out, right? It's all interconnected. So we kind of had to hit it all at once. But that initial consult is about breaking down again what the different. I kind of look at it, in wellness. There's 8 dimensions, right? So they're different buckets. So you have like your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being, your even creativity, right? How do you get stimulated? Your financial well-being, like so. There's all these different buckets, and then we get to see, okay, so how are you depositing into those buckets daily? What does that look like for you? And sometimes people look at it as an all or nothing. Right? It's like, oh, well, if, I either do all these things or I don't even do them at all. Or, it's that idea of like the sky is falling, right? Because they're so in it that they don't see that, hey, if you just make these small little tweaks, that's going to alleviate some of that stress and anxiety and depression that you're experiencing, right? So again, systems, put them at the center, and then look at everything else, and then I help to kind of organize, because when you think about, a lot of times people look at routines and their schedules. I don't have time. That's a big one. I don't have time, right? I'm family. I have a family. I'm working 9 to 5. That's what they'll look at it like. How do you have time to do all these things? And it's like, well, I look at my buckets, and I know that I've made, a lot of people will negotiate with themselves. We have what we call non-negotiables, right? So regardless of how my day went, regardless of how my week is going, I have to do these things in order for me to feel like myself, or feel like I'm in control when I'm out, when I'm feeling like I'm not in control, right? So it's like, what are you practicing daily, and understanding that it's not going to look, when you're highly motivated and you just start out, right? You got that spark, it's understanding that it's a roller coaster, right? It's like, one day you feel like you gave 100%. I did it, great. Other days, like, I didn't even do it today. I didn't even deposit, or it's 5%.
To be okay with those days.
It's executing with grace.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So I let my clients know, it's like, hey, we got to, we're going to have a structure, we're going to have a plan, but we're going to execute this with grace. There's some leeway here. It doesn't look like, that's why even when we set up like a workout plan, for example, we'll say, okay, hey, ideally I'd like you to do all of these things, and you said that we're going to commit to 4 days a week, right? If we don't hit 4 and we hit 3 one week, 2 one week, 4 the next week, maybe we added another day because we were short the prior week, I'm looking at the whole month outlook, right? So if our goal was, 20 workouts, it doesn't mean that you did it exactly how we set the plan out to. Maybe one week you did all 4 as we defined. Maybe the next week it was 2, but then the following week you ended up doing 6, right? It's like, it's the cumulative work over time, the incremental progress that then becomes sustainable. Okay. And that's our whole model, when we practice, it's inclusion rather than restriction. Add more to your life that is going to serve what you're trying to accomplish, rather than restrict or not do it at all.
Okay. So there's so many people that I know that need to talk to you. I myself am one of them, when we focus on the entrepreneurial side. Because being an entrepreneur, we forget a lot of these things. And the approach that you're bringing in is right away, my mind's already going in things that we could get together through mixing knowledge to help from this perspective, is the particular market or niche of business owners and entrepreneurs. Yeah. Because we need this as an entrepreneurs. We need to have the mental wellness that we sometimes don't think about. The physical health is some of entrepreneurs, we go to the gym, so we're trying to eat better. But I think the piece that I kind of got like the mental. It's so important for entrepreneurs to understand how to take care of that side of us. And there's so many ways that I want to make sure that we have this conversation outside cameras. Yeah. Honestly, I hope you still have time and you don't have to leave right now. But
I do.
I'm really grateful you came. I'm really grateful that we're having this chance. I'm getting to know you. Yeah. And what you're doing, man, God is giving you. He's created a platform for you that people need to understand. How can you help them with their wellness? That is so important. But everything that you've already identified with Nutrizy, it comes down. It's the nutrition, it's the wellness, and it's the physical factor, the physical health. But it all starts here. And that is because what you've gone through, you can touch so many lives, dude. Yeah. As long as people give you the chance to listen to you.
Yes, time of day. I'm here to help. That's what it's all about. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about my story, a little bit about the business. I'm just trying to do it, man.
We're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. We're going to figure out how we can work something together. But for right now, brother, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking this time out of your day. It won't be the last time we do this. We're definitely going to keep this conversation going. For the time being, everybody, thank you for paying attention to this podcast, Road Conversations. You got 2 guys from Riverside, California. We landed in Riverside, California. I've been here for 3 years now. I'm so grateful. I'm not looking back. This city has been nothing but great for me, for my family, for my business. And if anybody out there continues to look at the Riverside area as why are you there? It's like, you guys are missing out. Riverside is growing. Yeah. A lot.
A lot of opportunity.
A lot of opportunities. But thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day. We'll see you on the next one.